And I stumbled into, it's now E's room?
Yeah. Landry Williams room.
In Landry Williams' room. And y'all, it all became real then. Because of when we lost Elandria. Like, it feels like I can accept that Irvin's not here because I came, Eleanor, I should have told you I was going to do this, I'm sorry.
I understand.
Because I was here for the service, I experienced it. Joy, he was a powerful member of the congregation. Did you know her?
Yeah.
Her mom is sitting behind you. And somebody during the break will tell you about her. Or if you want to go in the room, there's a beautiful picture of her. She's a black woman with her own real hair, and it's down to here.
Wow.
I know when, I know, yeah, no, if you have a receipt, it is your hair. But this, she didn't buy this. And I wanted to check with Eleanor about where the hair came from, your side or Irvin's side.
My side.
Okay, obviously.
Native American side.
Oh my,
Native American.
wow. But y'all, this is important work, and it's work that you have been doing, and that E did, or Elandria did, and that, so this is not coming out of thin air or some bizarre notion or whatever. It's work that's close to our hearts that we've experienced. And when I went in there, and then when he started drumming, I just felt like, oh yeah, E would have said, yeah, do it. If you're gonna do it, do it. One of the things in African culture, it has slipped into African American culture in all sorts of ways, but is an acknowledgement of ancestral power, and that you don't, the notion that you've done it all by yourself, that's not Afrocentric. There was somebody who came before you. There will be somebody who comes after you. It's about what you do with the opportunity you have. So if you want to bring to mind, like now I have E very strongly, and Irvin probably too, on my heart and mind. So if you want to bring somebody in, be careful who you bring. Think about somebody who helps you in your work, in your having made it to this point. For some of us, there are whole lots of folks. But I just wanted to say that to begin with. Because I was one way, but when I walked in and I had tea and I was hugging on people, and I shifted when I went into E's room. And I wanted to be honest about that.
Along that note, Elnora and Irvin and I went through some of Elandria's writings and carved out some that are appropriate for readings for worship services, and now they're available on the UUA Worship Web. So, so that's when people are looking for resources for worship, you can go to the UU Worship Web and type in her name, and there's I think about 6 readings now. That's mine from her speeches and her writings. So, but now I want to brag on Duncan Teague.
Oh, just a second. How many folks do we have online?
We're not streaming it. We're recording.
Oh,
it.
we're not streaming, so I don't have to say hi to them.
No. You can say
Hi to future viewers.
you can say hi to future viewers.
You know, I try to be respectful because I've been at home trying to attend something. Yeah.
That's right. Hello, viewers of the future. I want to brag on the Reverend Duncan Teague for a second, because what he's doing by starting a church in the West End of Atlanta is not only something beneficial for Atlanta, it's beneficial for Unitarian Universalism as a whole. Trevor Noah did a pre-election comedy special in Atlanta, and he said, and he wasn't even thinking about Unitarians, but he said, Atlanta is to black people what Boston is to white people. So if you think about a Unitarian Universalist Association that comes out of Boston and comes out of a lot of in the 19th century, they said they believed in the fatherhood of God, the brotherhood of man, and the neighborhood of Boston. So a certain provincial nature, we're way overdue. We're way overdue to have a congregation within walking distance of Morehouse College, where Dr. King went to school, where Howard Thurman taught at Atlanta University, where the School of Social Work is named after a Unitarian, Whitney Young, who Peter Sampson, a minister who was here, did Whitney Young's memorial service. And Spelman College, which Marion Wright Edelman, and I'm just naming some names. I could go on their long list. But this is a place where people come and go out all over the world and lead. And so this is a really exciting development. And I'm always telling the UUA that this is something important nationally and internationally. So I wanted to begin with a song, because it's a song that is sung every Sunday. And that my first question will be, why does Abundant Love sing this song every Sunday? But I'll invite us all to sing, and it's "This Little Light of Mine," and everybody knows it. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Won't let anyone it out, I'm gonna let it shine. Won't let anyone it out, I'm gonna let it shine. Won't let anyone it out, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Shine all over the world, I'm gonna let it shine. Shine all over the world, I'm gonna let it shine. Shine all over the world, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. So Reverend Teague, why is that song in every worship service at the Abundant Love?
It is our candle or our chalice lighting song. I love the theology in This Little Light of Mine. Having grown up Baptist, the verse that a lot of Christians sing is, Jesus gave it to me, I'm going to let it shine. Well, that isn't my theology anymore. Maybe Jesus has some part of it, but it is my light. And the part I love, because I am in therapy, and have been for many years, is that it doesn't say after the committee approves, then I'm going to let it shine. It doesn't say when I get all of my family clapped together, I'm going to let it shine. It also, for Unitarian Universalists, doesn't say I'm going to make it shine. It says let. So an implication is that it's already shining, you just simply need to let it. For a lot of African Americans who come out of similar traditions like me, I think that little song is so freeing. And if you'll just Google it or go to YouTube and search it, you'll see hundreds of versions, and it really saved us during the epidemic. Because we had everybody singing it, from Sam Cooke to And I tried to keep them in the African American church tradition. Sometimes I didn't care, depending upon what the theme of the service was. So at Abundant Love, we're hopefully a place where we can let the light shine without having to go through a whole lot of rigmarole, as my father used to say, but simply allow what is there to shine. And it fits perfectly with our chalice lighting.
Yes.
Also, you don't have to teach it to folks. Now, you do have to teach different rhythms, but you, and it's really okay if you sing it like Chris just did with the camp sort of rhythm, and I come in with shine. It's okay. And that's the kind of community I wanted us to become. And thank God we're becoming that. It's we celebrated our 5th anniversary 2 Sundays ago.
And I'm reminded of how people who were being arrested during the sit-ins would sing this song also. So it's got a lot of anti-oppression power to it, and putting that at the center of worship is just an amazing thing. So tell me, why did you choose the particular neighborhood where Abundant Love is located? And I know this has been a long-term dream for you. So.
Okay, for the humanists in the room, hang in there. Because I'm going to get to you. But I'm going to start where my tradition says to start, and that was in my calling. I was sitting, let me make sure I don't answer that question.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Okay. Okay, so I'm sitting in seminary, because y'all make us go to seminary.
Let you go.
Yeah. That is not how it's written. Anyway.
That would be the rest of the program, that conversation's over now.
Yeah. So I'm sitting in Candler School of Theology, a good United Methodist seminary at Coca-Cola U or Emory. And Emory has gobs of money from the families that founded Coca-Cola and from the Coca-Cola Corporation. Their foundation would, oh God, if I had access to that money. Anyway, and you do not drink a Pepsi at Emory. You do not. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Somebody in a suit will come along and ask you where you got that. Yes, yes. And if you host a function, you do not serve generic or Pepsi on Emory's campus. It's that serious, and it ought to be, given the money they, yeah. Anyway, so why did I choose the neighborhood? I'm sitting in seminary, and I am a community ministry class, I think it was, and everything, of course, was talking about community and location and how you develop relationships with community. We talked about asset mapping. For those of us with a little bit of depression, that's the opposite of the way we do most of our organizing. It is looking at the community for what they really have, as opposed to what they don't have. So instead of saving the community because I'm here to save you, it is the community already has what they need. We need to work from that angle. I am sitting in that class, and I'm thinking about how many times I've been asked to go to Unitarian Universalist functions in Atlanta and leave my inner city home and drive 45 minutes to the suburbs that are predominantly white to talk about racism and why they have no black people in their congregations, or the 10 that we accept. And I'm thinking, I'm 45 minutes from where there are a whole bunch of black people. Am I all right, Joe? Okay. I'm just being honest, y'all. I don't have the pulpit guarding me today. And I thought, and then I drew a map of Atlanta, which is like a clock, that's 285 for those of you who suffered through that. And then you draw a line right through the middle, and that's I-20, though I-20 does sort of dip down south. And I-20 splits the city in half, north-south. All our congregations are north of that line. Guess who lives north of I-20? And not just white folks, because Atlanta's fairly diverse, but folks who have a little bit of money. Guess who lives south of that line? Inside the perimeter, it's pretty black and people of color. Now, gentrification is changing that by the day, and the rents are going up. But pretty much that's it, statistically. And all our UU congregations in Atlanta are north of that line. And I had this idea, see, y'all are still in my sermon. Anyway, that what would happen if we put a UU congregation south of I-20? And I thought, well, that's a good idea. And when somebody does that, that's gonna be good. And then I went on back to my community ministry class or wherever I was in Candler. That was, okay, I'm gonna use theological language and you'll be all right. That was God's way of, or her way of annoying me. Because I have this image in my head, I have this notion, and I'm like, well, it'll be really good when somebody, you know, from the UUA comes to South Atlanta and does this. And I also thought about THE, Thurman Hamer Ellington, the congregation, which was our African American congregation in the 90s. It was powerful, and it was a wonderful effort. In North DeKalb County, on the wrong side of the train tracks. They did a wonderful job. They met at their Friends Meeting House, which, by the way, was founded to support Dr. King in the 50s, the Friends, the Quakers. They beat us to it. UUA keeps saying they were the first integrated congregation. They weren't. It was the Quakers. So I think THE did a wonderful thing. What if they had done it on the black side of the train tracks? And they also had a philosophy and leadership that had them waiting 2 years for a minister to come. I've never seen a black church that started without a minister. Many UU fellowships exist a long time without ministers. And that's another workshop.
Yeah.
But I hadn't heard of a black religious community started without specific leadership. And all this is circling my brain. This is a long answer to this question. I'm going to shorten it. Okay, so I have the notion of where I-20 is, and that if something were to start south of I-20, that would be amazing. I met Jonathan Rogers, who was a church planter around the same time. He just happened to come to Atlanta. When I'm having this notion of planting a church in my head for somebody else to do, I went through the process of our ministerial fellowship. I messed up bad. A Duncan showed up at that interview that you have never seen. And that meant that I was stuck in Atlanta, having not gotten approval from the MFC. I'm not out. They didn't kick me out, but they said, you gotta come back.
What's MFC?
The Ministerial Fellowship Committee. How many of y'all know what that is? Okay, there's your,
It's sort of
they
like-
need to tell you, not me.
It's sort of like your dissertation committee, only you are the dissertation, to say you're ready for ministry. That's the simplest way I know how to.
And other liturgical religions have them.
Yeah.
The Methodists, the Lutherans, the Episcopals have a process that's worse than ours. So I messed up, so that meant I was stuck in Atlanta for a year without being approved by the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, meaning I can't really go much further. And my notion of just following along with the program, guess what vision got bigger and bigger? South of I-20. Damn. So I am now willing to go off the rails a little and do something different. Because I have this vision and I got Jonathan in my ear, and I'm looking at my congregation in Atlanta, UUCA, and I'm like, they're never gonna do this. They're doing everything they can to serve Unitarian Universalism where they are. And aside from UUCA, which is in town but was pushed deliberately out to the Jewish neighborhood by the Baptists and Methodists in Atlanta, we used to be in town near the King Center. And when UUCA was looking for a place in the early 60s, the realtors were told, do not sell to the Unitarian Universalists in the city of Atlanta. You didn't know that story, did you? That's how we ended up in the hinterlands of North Druid Hills, because that was a Jewish neighborhood. And there was a Jewish man who bought the property and then sold it to UUCA. They should put his name on a plaque. They're still in that neighborhood because they're so firmly ensconced in that area. But that's not south of I-20. When we formed, I had this idea. I got cancer, I got treated for cancer, I am undetectable as of 5 years. People were still waiting on me to do this. And I had my little group together. Because if Jesus needed 12, I knew I needed more. And then, now this is the part for the humanists and the scientists in the room. We didn't just go on my gut feeling or my calling. We had help from John Bosted's son, Jake Morrill, who was doing Launchpad with Robin Tanner, thank you. And they said, well, we'll do some research south of I-20 and see which neighborhoods will work for you. They went a little bit further into something called Cascade Heights, and it's the black version of Knoxville. Mayors from Atlanta live in Cascade Heights. Along Cascade Avenue is the Black Methodist churches on this side. A liberal, very large church founded by Dr. Barbara King is on that side. There is a Baptist church, of course, and then another Baptist church. And then there's this and there's that. And they're middle class, and they are all that.
They're all what? All
that.
Okay.
And they are related to mayors and senators and governors, and they ain't leaving their church. You go further south, and it's more middle-class black neighborhoods firmly ensconced in whatever they're doing. You go to the West End, and it's thriving. It's Afrocentric. There are a lot of entrepreneurs. There's churches that do all sorts of community organizing. Sound familiar? Fertile ground. The income level drops a little in the West End. It ain't dropped now, but because the houses are going up. And it's gentrifying. So we had on paper something that said, if you're going to do this south of I-20, you need to do it in the West End. I'm going to say this. We started at the Hammonds House Museum, and I am obedient. We can argue about to who, but I am obedient. The Hammonds House Museum is here, I-20 is right there, and we are south of I-20. So we started there because that was my calling. And then when we did the research brought us right back to I-20. And we were welcomed at I-20 at our first year anniversary service by several of the organizations in town, including the Hammonds House. And now we're known as being at the Hammonds House. I hope that that can last for a little longer, but there's some changes that have to happen. So that's how we ended up. Oh, and if you talk to the current residents of the West End, they will say it's black. And it is black. But y'all, in 1958, the West End was white. And Jewish, because there's a Jewish cemetery in the West End. In 1969, the West End was black. Redlining and white flight. Yes.
One of the things I've observed and worked with Duncan on this is how our system really isn't set up to do anything different. I mean, and I feel like one of the angriest letters I ever wrote was to the Ministerial Fellowship Committee.
That is not part of this workshop.
Yeah, but I do think because Duncan is choosing to do something different and unique, the system isn't set up very, very well for that. And it's if you go to an established
You are
congregation.
stealing my sermon.
Yeah, okay, well, I won't steal it. What I want us to take away is, what are the rules and which ones do we need to break? If we're gonna move forward.
I didn't break any rules.
Yeah.
I didn't break any rules.
Customs.
Yes,
Customs.
customs.
But the customs are presented as rules. I mean, I will.
They always are.
Yeah. It's only been
We're supposed to have classical music to start our meetings.
That's right. The longer I'm in the ministry, the more I realize I can get away with, because there are customs that are presented as rules, and you guys say, well, where's the bending room? Where's the flexible room?
Okay, I'll answer that, which is not a question, but I'm going to answer it. When I said I was going to found an African American centered, which means white folks can come. We've been coming to y'all stuff. Oh, shut up, Joe. See, I'm about to get real. Anyway. There was nothing on paper to say that I should not do it. There is nothing in the ministerial fellowship package to say I should. So I simply interpreted it the way I needed to. I did not break any rules.
So here's kind of a personal, but part of what I want to do is for us to reflect as a congregations in the East Tennessee is what can we do? What can we learn from what you're doing? And I'm aware you grew up in, a preacher's son, African American church, and you moved into Unitarian Universalism. And I'm wondering, what from your childhood experience of religion do you want to take and share? And what does Unitarian Universalism have to offer that is congruent with this little life? Is congruent with the energy that comes and the spirit that comes from that.
From my childhood, and how many of y'all grew up in other faiths? See, okay, I should have done it the easy way. How many of you grew up Unitarian Universalism? See, 1, 2, 3. Bless your hearts. And I didn't mean that in the other way. Okay, so y'all know what it means to have grown up. And typically that means that y'all would like me dressed up in your Sunday best at Sunday school. Not just worship. And so you know how deeply that theology was embedded in me. The church that I grew up fell short in their actions, not in their theology, not in what was posted on the board. I need to say that again. The church fell short, because guess who's at church? Imperfect people. See, this is Baptists coming out, y'all. For all have sinned and fall. Anyway, not the Unitarian, for all are perfect and should be welcomed at coffee hour. And so I had to wrestle with that at the time in my life when I was in my adult formation, because I was in the midst of the HIV and AIDS crisis. I was years old when, in 1982, when AIDS became a pandemic. Remember that other pandemic? Yeah. And lo and behold, the place where I had been brought up to believe would take care of me took care of drunks, folks who had committed all sorts of sexual offenses. You could be forgiven for cursing somebody out in the parking lot. But if you were gay and had AIDS, the church didn't know what to do with you.
Yeah.
And they were scared in a way that I'd never seen my people scared. I didn't want to take any of that. But the love and the care, I mean, part of the reason I'm a college-educated black man was because everybody at Westminster Baptist Church knew that Duncan was going to college, not just Reverend and Mrs. Teague. And when I took a year out of college, I had to answer to Westminster Baptist Church, Duncan, what are you doing? And I don't mean they went through my parents. They came directly to me. We think you need to be in college. What are you doing? Because too many black men leave college and never go back. They didn't know I had washed dishes and washed windows, and I was going back to college. But I had to answer to that kind of community. And that's one of the things I could take with me. There is something else. Oh, hey, I see you over there. You. There's a song called Blessed Assurance. Okay, the rest is Jesus is mine. But that blessed assurance thing, that I'm all right because of my faith, I want to take that. I got something worth telling other folks about. I got something worth building a community around. Something worth acting like I'm at the Super Bowl over. Uh-oh. Because not all white folks are the frozen chosen during every aspect of their life.
Can I get an amen?
When I realized that white folks will tear a thing out of the ground for a football game,
Throw it in there.
it's all right for you to say amen or clap and worship.
Amen.
Okay, so I wanted that liveliness, that I have gone through hell during the week. Give me some heaven on Sunday. I wanted to bring some of that into this notion. And love. And so we are called abundant love, not abundant rationalism. My experience is not the experience of the people who kept our doors open and built Unitarian Universalism in the 60s and 70s. When we were probably in a lot of communities the only liberal gas station, spiritually and philosophically. We were some of the few. And so we were very cutting edge. I'm stealing my own sermon now. My experience of coming into our movement was later. when I felt battered and bruised from the church of my origin, and I noticed that there were some other folks who felt that way. And this became a healing place for me. And I had already been an activist. This is my own story. I didn't need support for my activism at my church. It is wonderful to have it, but I didn't need it. I could get that support with the other activists. But I also saw, as I aged, how the other activists who didn't have spiritual support were killing themselves behind movements for liberation. And I wanted Abundant Love to be a place where the activists come and get healing. Yes, we need to put our bodies on the line. And after we get off the line, we need a place to go and get recharged and loved and cared for. I think I answered
You
the question.
did. You answered the question. And now we have a time for people to ask questions.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And just the first of many, I'm sure. So.
Chris will be happy to answer your question.
About 10, 15 minutes. If you have a question, you can go to...
Wait a minute, let's take a pulse of the room.
Oh, yeah.
Because y'all had coffee. Do we need 2 minutes to go relieve the coffee and then come back for questions?
Here we go.
Yeah, we do. Okay, 2 minutes. 2 white Republican minutes. Time is cultural. Issues will get a microphone to you. Y'all, just before we start, I want to acknowledge Rob for being here. Thank you for all of this work.
For the Article 2 Commission, Rob Spurko.
I have a question to ask you later about this, but I don't want to pick up everything, but that's
Yeah.
just a version of the diagram of the new values and all that sort of stuff. The question I will ask, I'll give you a warning, since you put the spotlight on me. Do you think, like you were saying earlier, and I wish I'd written the phrase down, well, the thing that's going to get people to rip goalposts out of the ground, do you think this might get us there at all, or help us get there? So I just, you don't have to answer that now, but
And I won't be answering it now.
And it is on the future. It is on the future here too. So, Ken, did you have a question?
Yes. I've told people many times that what inspired me to join the church was the activists here and the impact they had on the community. And so hearing this about us being a place to recharge rather than inspire is really a neat observation. But we have to do both, I think. And so we're anxious, I think, with the 8th principle to turn things into action rather than internal discussion. And so I'm grappling with how to do that. And I wonder what you've encountered and what lessons your experience might hold for us.
Ken, thank you for your question and for your work. Anybody who agrees to be the president of the congregation is either horribly devoted or needs some help. The first part of your question is I want you to take the but out of the first statement you made about the activists coming here to be recharged and not inspired. I didn't say not inspired. I said my experience was that I didn't need to go to church to get my activism, because remember, I was black and gay and dealing with HIV and AIDS as an activist in a community that was scared of church. So the idea of having that supported by church was fabulous. And that was part of the reason I got attracted to something that I didn't even know what it was, called Unitarian Universalism, because y'all in Atlanta, there was actually some support for that out of that community. So I want to say that instead of a but, because we have some English professors in the room, I'm sure, let's put an and. Like, you can be inspired to do activism and have a community that supports you in a way that keeps you healthy in your activism. And y'all, I take this so personally because, and I'm not gonna name her, but we now have a very experienced, very recognized national leader in Atlanta, and the only reason she is still alive is because of her wife. Her wife. Her wife literally devoted herself to bringing her back from the brink of death and possibly being institutionalized. And it is her love and care that has kept this activist alive. It wasn't the activist community, y'all. And I saw that, and it just, and the phone still rings. Will she come and do this? Will she come and do that? So I'm sort of biased about it. Yeah, and it is not an insult to the activists within Unitarian Universalism. But we can be activists and we can also support each other in healthy ways. Oh yeah, I need to say the other thing too, in full disclosure. The man who brought me into activism, and it was a lover. He was a card-carrying red armband person. Yes, he was a member of Workers' World Party, and that is not Democratic or Republican. That's way over that other side. Yes, and he brought me into activism, and he taught me about activism, and he never dealt with his demons or his problems, and it broke us up, and it eventually took his life. So I'm very cautious about what we mean when we say we're going to do something. Though I support it. I support it, y'all. But I also support us getting healthy and loving and caring and so attractive that everybody wants to come and be a part of us and become members. That's almost an inside joke. You raised about the images. Yeah, because of who we are becoming, we need images, we need statements, we need songs, we need all of it. Yeah, I'll let that sit.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Joy, for those of you that haven't met me. My name is Joy, for those of y'all that haven't met me. I'm trying to be in my introvert nature today for once.
Oh God, and the presenter just called you out.
Well, I'm a professor by trade, so when I get to sit back, I try to. But this is my first time visiting. I'm just moving to Knoxville, and as you were speaking towards people that have come from different theology, grew up Pentecostal, wasn't for me, have left it, and am looking for a spiritual community. Now, I will say, I have landed on, what is universalism? Okay, we'll try this out. But what I have come to find, as you were speaking to earlier, it is very please, y'all. I'm sorry if I trigger y'all. It's very white.
Yeah.
And I'm good with that because I'm multicultural. I'm cool with that. But I'm like, how does one in Knoxville, how does one bring in a branch in a multicultural way in Universalist environments if the only African American multicultural center is in Atlanta? How do we bridge that?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you just gave a question to the congregation. I will attempt to answer it from my perspective, and you know, I could be real Baptist and say, well, you can come on down to Atlanta every weekend. I know you don't. Nobody wants to get on 285 every weekend. You have found a place that is welcoming. It is predominantly white. It is not all white. There are some significant and important African Americans in Knoxville who would come through these doors. If they all came on one Sunday, you'd be surprised. I was surprised when they came through while I was here. They have to answer that question for themselves too, so you've issued them a challenge. Because y'all, it's not just Joy. There's hundreds of Knoxville people, many of them people of color, looking for y'all. Now, in Knoxville, y'all have a reputation and a pretty good rep in the community because of the stuff you've done. So it's about what happens when they arrive.
I have a question. How did you choose your disciples and start out? That's what I want.
Oh my.
How did you choose them?
Oh, the easy answer would be God gave them to me. I wouldn't dare do that to you. And I'm going to try to stick with you, Joy, while I answer this.
Okay.
You want to repeat the question for?
Oh yeah, because Faye didn't go to the mic. She asked, how did I choose my disciples? In fairness, some of them chose me. But there are, I'm also gonna, who's on the welcome committee here at Tennessee Valley? Anybody? Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
been very welcoming.
No,
We have
the greeters at the door.
Oh, yeah, everybody.
Y'all been very welcoming.
Yeah, they have been very welcome. But I want them to answer your question. Because my experience, okay, the other thing about Knoxville is, for me, there aren't enough black folks.
Yeah, yeah.
Or other.
Yeah.
I mean, Knoxville is what, 2% people of color?
17.
But I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that? Well, you must be because you moved here.
I mean, but my phenotype is not where I am, so it's like I'm alright with it.
Yeah, you're already there, okay.
17.
17%? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
When I moved here, it was 3%.
Oh my.
Maybe a little bit less than that when we moved.
So
here.
they have grown.
Yeah, we've grown.
When Elnora moved to Knoxville, it was 3% people of color.
2%.
We have a gun factory that started in Maryville, and then we have Amazon, so we've had a big influx of people from the north and the west and the south.
Would you like for someone to answer Joy shortly?
Yeah, you do.
I
And-
apologize, y'all. The question was really for more of in general.
In general.
In general.
Oh, okay, so
yeah.
Joy, to answer, Joy is talking in general, but you lit a fire.
I'm
So
sorry.
you're gonna have to
I'm
deal with
sorry,
that.
y'all.
This question really is at the heart of why we're holding this workshop, so I don't want to rush away from it. Yeah.
And Joy, if we were Pentecostal, we would say that you were directed to answer that question.
No, I think that's a great question. My name is Heather Kistner. I'm a member of the board here, among other things. But yes, welcome to Joy. I'm glad that she's here to spark some conversation. I'll just quickly answer. Faye was saying that there are some large corporations that have come into the area, which is of course beneficial to everyone, being Smith & Wesson and Maryville and Amazon as well. I know I hear some snickers about Smith & Wesson, but let's be real, it's a job and it has attracts a lot of folks. So as far as the greeters, there may not be many folks here that are on the actual welcoming congregational committee, but there are many of us here that serve the role as welcoming and greeters. Matthew, Jeff behind me. So I think it's about when we are approaching that sidewalk and see you coming up the sidewalk, we're excited to see you. And our role is to make that welcoming feel continue when you come into the building. So as greeters, we have kind of a bullet point list of things that we all try to accomplish while you're here in the building. And I think with the stewardship committee being really strong this year, we have, University of Campus, we have lots of communication going on. I know Mark is really busy with working on the membership as a whole. There's lots of work to be done, but we, I think, are slowly attracting both younger population of people and also multicultural population of people. So I hope that's helpful. The pandemic, whatever, I won't really say anything about that, but this is a wonderful time, I think, in our church to get a true stronghold on what we want to be by acting now with the positive influences that we have. So I feel really good about our growth, and I hope that that's helpful in agreement with my peers.
Yeah. I'd like to point out our eighth principal task force is a multiracial, multicultural group, and so we do recognize, you're absolutely right, it comes from history, like the neighborhood of Boston. Some of that history informs us, but part of what we're trying to do is create the space and for the conversations and for the community building and building partnerships with other organizations like the Hindu Community Center for our Diwali service, and working on making some connections with the Asian community around Chinese New Year, and Kigma, Asian New Year, Lunar New Year. So yeah, I do, because it isn't limited to that, but that's the language we were using in that committee. So there's it's like you can't do it in this building by yourself. Building multiracial, multicultural community is about inviting people in for events and going to events others, and I can't stress that enough, because in my experience, when I host something here around multicultural, lots of people come. When I say let's go to Tabernacle Baptist Church or another church, there's always a smaller group of people, and I think that's an important part of growing, which is being able to cross the threshold of a different racial or cultural tradition. And that's where you learn that if you say God is good, people applaud. This idea that you know applause in worship is a very wide idea. So you say God is good, yeah. So you learn what you need to bring back. So those are just some thoughts.
And it's not a white Pentecostal idea. It's not a white evangelical idea. There's a bunch of white folks who handle snakes and stuff. I'm not advocating that. But just to say, there is an I didn't want to go down this road. Anyway, there's a particular kind of white upper middle class, shall we say? Milieu that has a strong grip on Unitarian Universalism.
You went there, that's where I was getting at.
It's a grip, and it's a cultural grip. Yes.
My name is Jeff Miller. I often stand at the door on Sunday morning welcoming people to come in. And I'm not on any committee, I just do it. You know, there's a sign in the kitchen that says, if it seems like something needs to be done, it's probably your turn to do it. And that's the way I've been doing it with Trevor and some other folks. And I don't mean to garner applause. What I wanted to do was ask the question, how, I see very few people of other colors coming to the door. I'm happy to welcome them, but they're not there. And what I think we need to do is find a way to get those people through our doors. And any suggestions that people have, any ways of outreach would be very, very welcome.
I'm going to speak to that, and you're not going to like my answer. I think for an experiment, because that's been our rationale, we need to get people to come to us. How about we go to them? If I have a relationship with you, I might go to your church. Yeah, I'm going to take I love y'all. I'm saying this first. But what I'm going to say next is going to be hard. Who comes here is a reflection of the people you have relationships with.
Yeah. It's true. It is true.
Can I speak to that? My name is Joyce Green.
I can't hear you.
You can hear me? Can you hear me now?
No.
I'm not used to speaking on a microphone. I'm not used to speaking at all, hardly. But I've been coming here since January. My background, I lived in Germany 20-something years, so I've come into the United States, I've come to Knoxville, I've come to this church, looking for a community. And I found it here so far, but I'll tell you, you're familiar to me. I found you because you're familiar to me. I live close by. It was easy to come in your door, and everybody here is very welcome, and I really am loving your church. But I think someone else has been with me over at the Voter Coalition turnout meetings. See, I came from the outside coming into this area for various reasons and tried to figure out, well, what's here, where is everything? And I was interested in vote, why people didn't vote, and there was a voter turnout coalition workshop. And it was over in this part of town that I've never been over there. I mean, it was like, where is this place? I mean, I've been all around West Knoxville area, down towards Iams. I went south a little bit, but this is northish, eastish area. And I went over there, and the first time I went over there, it was like, wow, I don't know what's going on in this area. Where am I? It was very different. And it was like a desert, for one thing, because I thought, well, why is it like this here? Why am I feeling uncomfortable here? Well, what is the one thing that kind of brings people of my kind of, like me, is where are the shops, right? Where is the stores? Where is the Michaels? Where is the Walmart? Where's all these places? And they weren't there. Very strange. And it was just, this was over at, what is that place? That's the,
Phyllis Wheatley, YW.
The Wheatley, Phyllis Wheatley, YWCA. And we went for meetings there, and it was a very different mixed group. And they wanted to get out and do canvassing to find out why people didn't vote. And then I thought, wait a minute, I can't go door to door with this group to find, to get people to give their honest answers about why they're upset with the government of this city and why they're not voting and all, because I'm white, obviously. And they may not want me to be there in their homes, asking them this question, that kind of thing. But anyways, that's a whole other area. That's just to introduce you a little bit to me and where I'm coming from. You mentioned Atlanta and south of whatever your highway was.
About 20.
Where's the dividing line here? Is it the James White Parkway?
Yes.
Yes. And what do we do over there? What do you all do over there? What's over there? Is there a UU over there? I didn't look, because it was convenient for me to come here. I fit in. I see all you people. I fit in with you people. I mean, I have a very different background from you, but I know it's that cultural thing. I'm comfortable with you all. I was uncomfortable there, but those people were welcoming. Those people, it was amazing, the different, in the group, the activities that, different individuals sitting around our table, we were a mix of backgrounds and cultures and colors. The activities that they were engaged in, devoted to, really, really powerful. And I thought, wow, really strong. But since I've not been to the meeting over there anymore, and since I've come here, I've had no reason to go back to that part of town. And I wonder if it's kind of like what you said. You need to embed. Something needs to be embedded on that part of town. And even if and what the pastor said, Chris, about, going there, going to their worship service, to their territory, getting to know those people so they feel comfortable about coming here and coming into our doors. Because, it's an exchange. You come to me, I'll go to you, kind of thing. Just my observation to add.
I think, there are opportunities through Justice Knox, NAACP. So one of the things I think is important is to encourage people to find and join organizations that are engaged in the work that we're all committed to. And then you will find yourself going to meetings in different parts of town, and you'll find yourself, and this town is very different. I mean, every time I go to a meeting in East Knoxville, and it's like this, there's different perspectives on what's going on. There's different points of view, and I'm always enriched by that experience, and just all the different parts. But I do think part of moving forward is not this idea that this box, this building, is how we fix it, but it's relationships and forming relationships and joining the groups that help us forge those relationships, so that help us invite people to the congregation
One of the things that you have is the building. And the building in Knoxville is a beacon of liberalness here. And so you have had the fortune of, if you're doing something liberal or cutting edge and you need a space to go, they come here. So you haven't had to always go out because they come to you. Now, I have a confession to make. What's the name of the center where you were going to have Irwin's memorial, and you kept it at the Beck Center? Y'all, in full disclosure, and I know y'all love me, Nobody ever told me about the Beck Center when I was
Why?
here.
No, that's not what, we talked about it.
Did we?
Yes, we did.
Really?
Well,
Okay, I don't
I-
remember.
I've never.
I didn't remember it.
Yeah.
And certainly nobody took me there. I'll say that. Because I didn't have a frame of reference for it.
I think Renee came, on our Sundays where we divided, I think she was here once when you were here.
Okay.
Share the place.
The other thing that happened while I was here was I noticed a group of gay men who were standing in the parking lot. Yes, I know where I can see gay men. Trust me, at this point in my life. And throughout my life. But anyway, they were standing in the parking lot every Monday evening. They met here.
Yeah.
And nobody told me they were meeting here. I had to find out because, there were some some men in the parking lot. I love my husband. But they were standing in the parking lot as we do after meetings. And that's how I found out that the gay group in Knoxville meets here in the congregation on a Monday. You all have the privilege of this building and people who represent a large diversity of Knoxville come to you. And you are comfortable. I am begging for you to take comfort off your spiritual list.
Yeah. One of the things.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
And put uncomfortable on your spiritual list.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. I do think we have to be uncomfortable. One of the assets we have when I came here in 2001, we were thrust into interfaith work because of the shooting in September 11th. I mean I'm conflating tragedies here. The attack on September 11th. But I was the only person at a community meeting who had been in the mosque because I taught Sunday school in this church, and we went to the mosque. And so the mayor's there are all sorts of, but I was, so we do have building bridges, and we were doing interfaith work in the community. I can tell you one of the hardest things about interfaith work is agreeing on where to meet, to have a meeting or have an event. After the shooting, Interfaith Knoxville came to us, and this building to this day is a place where interfaith groups feel, this is everyone's place.
Yeah.
And so this is a power that we earned absolutely the painful way, but it was, being out there in the community with people made the community want to come in and be with us, and I do think that's something we can build on, as Duncan was saying. So amen, Duncan.
I think Gordon's.
Chris.
Gordon.
No, yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
My question has changed 3 times since I stood up.
Okay.
I'm Rob Spurko. I'm a member of Foothills UU Fellowship, well south of I-40. So, but it's a small church. It was an offshoot of this one. I was a member here before we started up down there. In Blount County, which is, in many people's imagination, not a fertile ground for Unitarian Universalism, but there are 80 of us. So,
You have 80?
Mm-hmm.
You have 80?
yeah.
Could y'all please applaud that?
Yeah.
I have preached all over the Southeast, and a whole lot of times it was 20-something. 80 is nothing to sneeze at.
Well, about 40 who come to any given Sunday. But, there are a couple of things, one thing I just heard reminded me, I'm teaching Audrey Lord this week in class, and I had a student come up Thursday after class angry. She was angry. And she was angry. She was a senior at UT, and she had never heard of Audrey Lord before.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, you had not heard of the Beck Center. You had not heard of some of these things. There's a communication thing going on, connecting people. And it occurred to me, listening, that people come to the building, but who is in the building at any given time when the other people are here? You know, I'm trying to process this in my own congregational. We don't have a building. I kind of want Duncan to come and talk to us so that when if we get a place, we put it in the right place. But, you know, but I remember, speaking of another student, I had Tom Everett, who was retired and taking classes. He was the Baptist minister in one of the housing projects here in town and retired from that. And it was an education for me. We had conversation after conversation. He drove me around Knoxville one time and showed me how you could not see any of the lower income neighborhoods from the interstate, for instance. You know, like Knoxville does have these lines. You know, y'all are better suited to mapping. I think we got from Joyce some insight there. Y'all know. But so one question, I don't know if it's a question, God, I'm an academic, Jesus. I'm just not really a question, more to come. But, you know, but thinking about, you know, building community, building connections, right? You know, people can use the building, but are they using you all? You know, I know there's a building committee, I know there's like sextons and all this sort of stuff, but, you know, yeah, they may be comfortable coming to the building, but are they comfortable coming to the group, right? And again, I going out and, you know, who you connect to. So my question, though, is, it's not very well related, but it comes from a similar place, which is, you were talking, Duncan, about being a healing space, right? And, you know, I'm thinking about, I'm going to be going to a protest at the Bird Brook this afternoon in Maryville. The Pumpkin Drag Show is happening, and there are going to be some people opposed to drag showing up, apparently. I'm starting to move into the, you know, body on the line. I was quoted in the newspaper, etc. So there's a real, for me, there's starting to be an even more visceral need for that. My question is, what are the most healing things a congregation can do, right? I mean, I think one thing is, like you were saying, getting stuff in line, processing our own complicated histories with churches and other communities. But what do you think, like, what the most healing things a congregation can do to be that place where an activist can come and get healed?
As much as I hate this word, it has to be what was most healing the first time I walked into the first existentialist congregation in Atlanta. And it was my venture outside of mainline Christianity, was their authenticity. They didn't have a sign on the door that said, "Welcome Black queens who work in HIV who are burnt to a crisp." It was before, this is in the 80s, so it was before something like Black Lives Matter. But how I got there was similar to this conversation, because Black and white men together had a Halloween dance on the floors of the first existentialists. And I said, this ain't Baptist. And I said, I want to find out who's letting an interracial gay group dance at Halloween here. And so I went in and I was welcomed. And then I was asked to participate after I had been there a while. And it's actually where my ministry was recognized first outside of mainline Christianity. So something about seeing me and letting me become who I needed to become there. And they were just themselves, but they were very loving and very caring. And the minister was an ordained UU minister. He had founded the First D as its own thing. And then when I wanted to take my ministry somewhere, I deliberately went all over and saved the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Atlanta for last, and lo and behold, that's where I needed to be. So that was an intellectual and spiritual process, and what was healing about that was, oh, I almost want to turn the tape off. No, don't. I'm gonna say it and take the heat. Joy, pray for me. When I got to UUCA, the largest congregation at that point in the Southeast, one of the largest, they circumvented all the processes to make space for me. And I didn't know that. The minister came to me, okay, Joy, you'll love this, came to me and said, we need you here. And I said, well, don't you want me to join first? Oh, that's a preliminary thing, don't worry about that. And that was a sign to me that there was a space for me. It wasn't 10 people asking me, are you going to come? It was recognizing what I had done and recognizing that there was a place there for me. One of the things that we've done this answers another question. In African American spiritual communities, your first sermon is a big deal, because there typically isn't a lot of hoops to jump through. So from your call to your first sermon, maybe a month, maybe a few months, whatever. It's typically determined by the relationship with the senior minister. And when you give your maiden sermon, forgive that term, it's horrible, but when you give your first sermon, that's a big deal. And I knew I wanted to do that at Abundant Love. So when Catherine Moore gave her first sermon ever to Abundant Love, I made it a big deal. And Catherine is out as a trans woman, because I wanted her to know there's a space for your ministry right here. And I used that African American thing about you coming into the pulpit is a big deal. Not when the committee says it, not when, yeah. Okay, I think I answered that. And Gordon was on my internship committee, so we have to let him ask a question. Oh, you were chair.
Sorry to force you like that. Exercise my power. Nonsense. I want to hop back to the conversation about our building as an asset. People do come to us, come at least to the space. And individually, I look around this room, and I've been around long enough, I can almost go around and talk about the excellent work in the community that each person here is doing. I don't know all of you that well, but a majority of people here, I can say, oh, yeah, I see you doing this and this, and you're working on these things. But one of the experiences I had coming into this congregation is that we do not, as a body, rally to causes. Now, in northern Indiana, I served a small congregation. I think our peak was 135 members. And I think back to things like the rallies saying we should not go to war in Iraq. I remember with some pride that there was a rally held on the courthouse grounds in Elkhart County, Indiana. And the courthouse is actually in Goshen, Indiana, some distance from.
I was born in Goshen, Indiana. And left.
There are reasons for that. Goshen is a very Mennonite town, and Mennonites
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
peace activists. Our little Unitarian Universalist congregation had the second largest congregational presence in that anti-war rally in Goshen, Indiana. About 20% of our congregation was out there at night. I've never seen 20% of TVUUC anywhere except in our sanctuary.
Joseph Knox. Yeah.
Maybe close. With a lot of work.
Fred's group, we had about 40%.
But we do, you know, one of my marker points was when Judy and I moved here, there were protests of the existing war in Iraq because that rally in Goshen didn't work totally. And every third Sunday, Bob Grimmick had a rally down at the corner here.
We participated.
We were having two services. You could go to either service and have a nice break in between to go down on the corner and hold one of the signs. You didn't have to make the sign. Bob had them. John Bosted was there with some frequency. Bob was always there. A few other members showed up. Huh? This was a ripe opportunity. Next to no effort. You believed in the cause, but we didn't show up in numbers. So, I think we need to do a better job of responding to calls to justice. We have a real heritage. We need to keep that alive and not coast on what happened in Bob West's ministry and Ken McLean's ministry. We need to make Chris Bice's ministry really outstanding. Oh, those Chris's people, yeah, we call for them and they show up. Yeah, always, you know, there are bound to be at least 50 of them there.
Mayor?
I'm just so glad to be here. Everyone, I'm probably going to cry. I'll cry closer to the microphone. Thank you. That's just what I needed. One thing this reminds me of, and he does regularly because of the intensity of it and the seriousness of it, is a lesson I have to keep learning again and again over time. And I hope I'm closer, but I hope you can still understand me, the words that are coming out of my mouth. Is that sometimes we spend so much time looking at the differences amongst us, we forget to look for the similarities. And that's been so close to my heart. And that is something I think of almost every time I walk in this door. And there's a story I'd like to share with you. It should be short. I'm not known for telling short stories short, but I will try. I was at a gathering in St. Louis,
and the topic was understanding racial differences and similarities. And one of the exercises we did was to talk with somebody that we might have known or didn't know and figure out 2 ways that we were similar and 2 ways that we were different. And unfortunately got paired up with the doctoral student buddy of mine, Maggie Smith, and we discovered that one of our similarities had to do with our grandmothers. Maggie was raised in Arkansas. Maggie's African American. I was raised in Kansas. Her grandma in Arkansas used to tell her, cackling hens, let's see, whistling women and cackling hens never come to no good end. My mom's Polish. I have German and Polish heritage. And I could not speak with my Polish grandma. I never learned Polish so I could speak with her. And I can't say it to you in Polish. But one of the things she used to tell us as kids in Polish was the Virgin Mary cries every time a woman whistles. So that was this amazing, wonderful similarity that we found amongst those differences. So if any of you know Polish and know how to say that, please let me know. If you have other versions of that, please let me know. I thank Maggie, and I thank everybody who's tried to teach me that lesson over time. I have to keep relearning it. That so often we look for differences, we forget to look for the similarities. My tears are for us all.
I think we're moving to that phase where we have conversations in small groups, so is that right?
Let's see.
One quick question.
Okay, yeah, I'm asking because I don't have a schedule in front of me.
Why do you love peach cobbler?
Oh, that's easy.
What?
I love peach cobbler, it's sacred.
Yes.
Oh, that's part of my being a UU, by the way, is that y'all gave me permission to make things sacred. And I don't have to run it through a committee. Or I choose not to. And peach cobbler is so sacred. Oh, joy. At my ordination, there was a line of peach cobbler, and for some reason there was also a line of Chardonnay. But anyway, and I have preached it from the pulpit because everybody who has sense loves peach cobbler. But anyway, I love it because it takes me back to my grandmother and her oldest daughter who died at 96 2 years ago. And you can't touch Ain't No Buffet's peach cobbler. But last night at Old Charlie's, Bill will be my witness. Y'all, it came close. And Old Charlie. And they wouldn't give me the recipe. And Ain't No Buffet died and took the recipe with her. So please, if you make decent whatever, write it down and give it to one family member. Don't take it off to glory with you.
We'll take Greer, and then we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll move into discussion.
Oh, peach cobbler is also Southern.
Yes.
And I was raised in Kansas City, which is up south. And having that love of peach cobbler has been a good way of translating myself to other folks. Northerners, I don't know what they...
Excuse you. No, see, we was cool though. What you talking about?
When Duncan left his internship, I gave him a bottle of peach moonshine. A little bit of that, a little bit of Georgia and Appalachia.
You know that's on tape now.
Last night, I parked my car at Westminster Church to go to Symphony. And I was parking, and as I got there, a big bus was leaving for Selma and for Montgomery. And it was Westminster Church partnering with, and I don't know the name of the church, but it was a black church that they partnered with before, and they've made this trip with their youth and their adults together. And I thought, why is that not TVUC? I'll just leave it there.
How about a trip to Montgomery?
But we have.
They went to Montgomery, that's what I said. Right, that's
Do you want to comment or take the break and then do questions? Everyone, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Before we take that break, I would like to say, although there is abundant rationalism in this room, there is abundant love for you, Reverend Duncan Teague. Thank you for coming here, and thank you for the questions and answers.